Thank you for listening to the 39th Street Church of Christ Daily Devotional. The devotional today is Those Pesky Signs by Jack Williams. Did you ever notice those little signs going down there, those pesky speed limit signs? Well, all of us see them. Sometimes some odd things happen. I was driving along today and there was a speed limit sign, 35 miles an hour. So I set my cruise control on 35. That way I don't have to think too deep about staying there. But here come a man driving up behind me and then zoomed around me. He was waving at me. I have a feeling it wasn't a friendly wave. But anyway, it wasn't long, another block or so. I looked and he was up there and I saw his brake lights come on. Well, sure enough, I got up there and there was a policeman, had his radar set. Well, the guy got by. But when he saw that one who was able to enforce the laws, man, he hit his brakes. All of a sudden, 35 seemed okay because somebody was watching. You know, that same man, if you were to drive in his neighborhood and just go zooming past his house, he'd likely get a little upset. He'd think, how can you drive that way? Or you're endangering my children. You're driving from that. What if I backed out? All these things because now it's all about him. When you think about God's law, you see, he's put speed limits up, I guess you'd say. He's put road signs. Here it is. There's a narrow way that we're to travel on, Matthew the 7th chapter, verse 13 and 14, and narrow ways, you have to pay attention to the signs lest you get off the way. He's given us directions that whatever we do, we're to do all in the name of his Son. It is by his authority, Colossians 3 and verse 17. Nothing new. Jesus said that in Matthew 28, 18 through 20. He had all power, and we were to observe all things whatsoever he'd commanded. But you look, and people today, they kind of take or leave God's law depending on several things. One, sometimes they've got the mistaken idea nobody's watching. Just like that fella drove on and, well, there's no policeman around, no radar. Well, the fact is, God is always watching. Psalm 139, the psalmist said, "Whither shall I flee from thy spirit?" Verse 7. We know that in Romans, the 2nd chapter, I believe it's in verse 6 or 7, he tells us that he will judge man, everything that he has done. He will render to every man according to his deeds. And he has to know what our life is. So sometimes people play like God's speed limits. They're not there. He's not watching. Well, he is. Other times, though, you'll find that people get upset if you don't live the way they do. In the book of Romans, the 1st chapter, we find a description of people living ungodly lives, that is, without limits. And we find in the latter part of the chapter that they not only do those things, but they have pleasure in others that do them. Well, what's left unsaid, but what is obvious in the world in which we live, they get upset if you do live by the rules, because it kind of condemns them. Jesus said in John the 3rd chapter that he was the light and people wouldn't come to the light because they love darkness. In other words, they don't want their works to be seen, he would say. But those same people, if the laws of God are in their favor, if you were to do something against them that hurt them personally, all of a sudden, how can you do that? God says you ought to be a good Christian. It's odd. You drive down the road and it's odd how people look at those pesky little signs and they treat them in so many different ways. Self-serving is what it all amounts to. But God, he's given those laws. And it's not just pesky little signs. These laws, these words are the things that we will be judged by, John 12 and verse 48. By he who we already noted knows all things. And it doesn't matter if everybody else is doing it. He's going to judge every one of us according to what we have done. And being self-serving, Matthew 7, 21 through 23, we've done many wonderful works. In other words, when it was for me, I did it. When it wasn't, I didn't want to obey it. And Jesus said, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Next time you're driving along the road and you see those pesky signs, be a good idea to obey them. God said to, Romans 13. But also, it's, of course, the right thing to do if you're going to be part of an orderly society. But whenever you see those signs, be reminded that God has given his limits. And realize that he knows everything going on. We can't pick and choose whether it's something that pleases me, and don't get mad at other people because they do the right thing and you're not. Why don't we just do what God says? Be a good life. Roads would be safer. Life would be safer. Thank you for listening. You have a good day. Pay attention to those pesky little signs.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this short devotional. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you'll be notified of other devotionals that will be forthcoming. Also, we encourage you to join us online live as we stream our services at each service time. More information can be found on our website at the link below. Thank you.